Have you ever prayed the Rosary and felt absolutely nothing? No peace, no clarity, no emotion at all? You're not alone. But what if those dry, silent prayers were actually the most powerful ones you've ever prayed? What if the moments when you feel least connected are the moments when God is working most deeply in your soul? And what if the Rosary isn't about what you feel, but about what He heals? That's the secret most people miss about the Rosary. It's not a performance. It's a journey, a sacred rhythm that carries you even when your heart feels numb or your mind is distracted. There's a quiet, hidden grace in simply showing up, bead by bead, whispering the words that saints and sinners have whispered for centuries. You don't need to feel holy to be transformed. You just need to keep going. In today's world of instant feedback and emotional highs, it's easy to think that prayer only works when it stirs something dramatic. But the Rosary invites you into something deeper. It teaches you how to walk by faith, not by feeling. Each Hail Mary, each Our Father is a step into trust, a letting go of the need to control or understand. It's not about emotional confirmation, it's about surrender. And in that surrender, healing begins. When you pick up your Rosary in the middle of a storm, in grief, in anxiety, in doubt, you are not escaping your pain. You are entering into it with the Mother of God. You are inviting her to walk with you through the mysteries of Christ's life and through the mysteries of your own. She doesn't need you to be eloquent. She just wants you to show up. The beauty of the Rosary is its simplicity. It doesn't ask you to be a theologian. It doesn't require the perfect words. It only asks for your presence, your willingness to stay, even when the words feel dry, even when the mysteries seem distant. That staying power, that is faith, and faith changes things. There are days when you will hold the beads and feel like nothing is happening. You'll wonder if you're just talking into the air. But in heaven, every Hail Mary is heard. Every mystery you meditate on becomes a mirror that reflects your own life. You may not see the transformation right away, but slowly, quietly, the Rosary begins to form your soul. It brings order to chaos, peace to the restless mind, strength to the weary heart. Not always with emotion, but always with grace. Even neurologically, repetitive prayer calms the brain. It lowers anxiety, it centers you. But more than science, the Rosary aligns your life with Christ. Through the joyful, sorrowful, glorious, and luminous mysteries, you begin to see your own life through the eyes of eternity. You find out you're not alone in your suffering. You realize your small yes each day connects with Mary's great yes to God. And slowly, your life becomes a living mystery, something beautiful, something sacred. So the next time you feel nothing while praying, don't stop. Don't walk away because it's quiet. Stay with the silence. Stay with the repetition. Stay with Mary. Because even when you don't feel it, God is doing something in you. And the Rosary is the gentle, steady thread pulling you toward healing, one prayer at a time. There's something mysterious about the Rosary that you can't fully explain, especially when you commit to praying it daily, even in seasons when you feel dry, distracted, or even distant from God. You begin, often reluctantly, thinking, will this really matter today? But as the weeks pass, something begins to shift. Not in a dramatic lightning strike way, but in small, quiet moments that start to thread themselves through your everyday life. You start noticing how your reactions change. The anger that used to flare so easily softens. The anxiety that once gripped your mornings loosens its hold. You may not even realize it at first, but the people around you will. They'll see a steadiness in you, a groundedness like a tree planted deep by still waters. And the truth is, it's the Rosary that's been tilling the soil of your soul. Every repetition of the Hail Mary, every mystery you contemplate, becomes a space where grace can work. You might still feel numb some days. You might still fumble through the words. But in heaven, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep showing up, that you are still saying yes. The Rosary is not meant to impress. It's meant to transform. And it does so in ways that go far beneath the surface. It's not about feeling pious. It's about becoming whole. Healing doesn't always feel warm and glowing. Sometimes it feels like silence. Sometimes it looks like routine. But every time you pick up those beads, you're telling God, I'm here. And every time He answers, whether you sense it or not. This quiet discipline builds resilience in your faith. When you don't rely on emotion to carry your prayer life, you begin to discover what it means to walk by trust. It's easy to pray when the spirit is high, when you feel touched or inspired. But what about the ordinary days? The days when faith feels like effort? That's where the Rosary becomes a lifeline, a rope of grace you hold onto in the dark. One woman shared that after a season of deep loss, she could barely say anything to God. Her prayers felt cold, but she kept praying the Rosary every night, even if she only managed a single decade. Over time, the weight of her grief didn't vanish, but it became something she could carry. She said it was as if Mary carried it with her, mystery by mystery. The Rosary didn't fix her pain, it walked her through it. That's the deeper promise of this prayer. It's not magic. It's not an emotional shortcut. It's a relationship, slow, faithful, and healing. The Rosary teaches you to linger with Jesus and Mary in every season of life, birth and joy, sorrow and death, glory and resurrection. It's a full map of the Christian journey, held gently in your hands. Even when you're struggling with distractions, when your mind drifts mid-prayer, when you forget which mystery you're on, it still counts. Because the Rosary is more than words. It's your willingness to remain. It's your desire to draw near, no matter how weak that desire might feel. And in return, God draws near to you. Not always with fireworks or spiritual ecstasy, often with peace that arrives like a whisper, a calmness you can't explain, a moment of clarity that helps you forgive someone, a sense of being held, even when you thought no one saw your pain. Over time, the Rosary rewires your heart. It opens you to humility, to patience, to love. It trains you to see with the eyes of faith, to notice grace where before you only noticed struggle. And Mary, as your gentle companion, keeps pointing you back to Jesus, always to Jesus. Her whole mission is to help you love him more, and she does, whether you feel it or not. That's the power of the Rosary. Not in how it makes you feel, but in who it helps you become. Not in the emotional highs, but in the quiet shaping of your soul. So if you're praying the Rosary and wondering if it's working, take heart. It's already working. In the silence, in the stillness, in the ordinary days when you feel least spiritual. Because grace doesn't depend on how we feel. It depends on God's faithfulness. And he never fails to show up. One of the most profound lessons the Rosary teaches is that love doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes love is silent. Sometimes it looks like showing up even when you don't know why. That's what praying the Rosary has become for many. An act of love without conditions, without expectations, without the need to feel something spectacular. And that in itself is deeply powerful. You may wonder, how can repeating the same prayers over and over possibly matter to God? But consider this. We repeat what we love. A parent tells their child, "I love you," every day, not because the child has forgotten, but because the love is alive. In the same way, every Hail Mary, every Our Father is a whisper of love. Even when your heart is tired, even when you don't feel heard. The Rosary has a way of anchoring you when everything else feels chaotic. In a culture that moves fast and loud, it slows you down. It helps you breathe differently, think differently, love differently. With each mystery, you're invited to step out of the noise of the world and into the quiet truth of the gospel. You're not just reciting words, you're entering moments. The Annunciation, the Crucifixion, the Resurrection. You're walking with Jesus and Mary through the most sacred chapters of history. And those stories start to reshape your own. It's not always easy. In fact, some of the most transformative Rosary prayers happen when you least want to pray them. When your hands feel heavy picking up the beads, when your mind is a battlefield, when every word feels like a whisper into the void. That's where faith grows, not in comfort, but in consistency. One young man said he began praying the Rosary during a season of deep temptation. He didn't feel holy. He didn't even feel worthy to pray. But someone told him, just start. Even if you feel fake, just start. So he did, 1 mystery a day, then 2, then 5, and slowly the temptations didn't disappear, but they lost their grip. He was no longer facing them alone. The Rosary had become his shield. This prayer isn't a performance. It's a place to rest. Even if you're praying through tears, even if you feel like a hypocrite, even if you've been away from God for years, there is no perfect way to pray the Rosary. The only mistake is not starting. Over time, something shifts. Not because your situation changes instantly, but because you do. You begin to see the invisible, the grace woven into your days, the quiet strength that carries you. The Rosary forms you to be more gentle with others, more patient with yourself, more available to God. You start noticing how Mary's presence subtly enters your life, a peace that wasn't there before, a nudging in your heart to pray for someone you'd usually ignore, a softening in your judgments. That's her. That's the mother who's been walking with you, bead by bead, teaching you to love like her son. The mysteries of the Rosary are not just stories to be remembered, they are realities to be lived. The joyful mysteries invite you to welcome God's will with courage. The sorrowful mysteries teach you to carry your crosses with trust. The glorious mysteries awaken hope when everything feels dark. The luminous mysteries challenge you to walk in the light of Christ, even when the world pulls you into shadows. You don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to be perfectly focused. You just have to be willing to sit in the silence, willing to trust that grace works beneath the surface, willing to believe that even your weakest prayers are heard. The Rosary gives your soul a rhythm, a pulse of prayer that sustains you through both joy and sorrow. It doesn't erase your pain, but it holds it. It doesn't remove your questions, but it sanctifies them. It doesn't promise easy answers, but it reveals a faithful presence. One woman shared that after years of struggling with anxiety, she found in the Rosary a place of refuge. Not because her anxiety disappeared, but because she finally had somewhere to place it. "I don't have to carry this alone anymore," she said. "Every Hail Mary is me handing it to God." That's the real miracle of the Rosary. It gives you something holy to hold when life feels too heavy. It teaches you to endure, to hope, to love. And little by little you become someone new, not because you feel different, but because grace has been working behind the scenes. So keep praying, especially when it's hard, especially when you feel numb. That's when it matters most. Sometimes we want prayer to fix everything instantly. We wish the Rosary could erase the grief, stop the panic, restore what we lost. But prayer isn't magic, it's relationship. And like all relationships, it grows through time, trust, and presence. That's what the Rosary cultivates in us, presence with God even when nothing else makes sense. There was a woman who had been praying for her son's return to faith for years. Decades passed and nothing changed, until one day, without warning, he showed up at Mass. When asked what made him come back, he simply said, "I don't know. I just felt drawn." She smiled quietly. She knew what it was. Bead by bead, she had been building a bridge in prayer, and finally he walked across it. That's the hidden power of the Rosary. It doesn't always work in visible ways, but it's always working. You don't see roots growing underground either, but one day there's fruit. One day there's change. Grace takes time, but it never wastes time. You may feel like you're going through the motions when you pray. You might even wonder if God is bored with your repetition. But the truth is, the Rosary isn't about novelty, it's about fidelity. It teaches you to return again and again to the heart of Christ through the heart of Mary. That returning, that steady rhythm of trust is where transformation happens. There's a deep peace that comes from surrendering your need to feel prayer. We live in a world that worships feelings. If we don't feel inspired, we think it's fake. But the saints knew better. They prayed through dryness. They loved God in silence. They clung to the Rosary when everything else seemed lost. Saint Teresa of Calcutta, known for her decades-long experience of spiritual dryness, once said, "I am not called to be successful, but to be faithful." That's what the Rosary invites us into. Not flashy spiritual success, not emotional highs, but quiet faithfulness. Faithfulness that shapes the soul like water shapes stone. And in that space, something sacred unfolds. Your heart becomes more attentive, your mind more disciplined, your will more aligned with God's. You begin to pray not just with your lips, but with your life. The Rosary becomes a habit of love, a spiritual heartbeat that sustains you even on the hardest days. Many people who have kept the Rosary close during depression, grief, or chronic illness describe it as a lifeline. Not because it changes everything around them, but because it keeps their soul anchored in something eternal. When words run dry and emotions fail, the structure of the Rosary remains. It gives you a way to pray when you can't find the words yourself. The repetition is not empty. It's the repetition of love, of devotion, of trust. Like waves on the shore, it shapes the soul slowly but surely. And as you return each day, even with distractions and doubts, you're saying to God, I'm still here. I still believe, even when I don't feel it. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. The Rosary also connects you to something bigger than yourself. It's not just your prayer, it's the prayer of the Church, prayed by saints and sinners for centuries. When you hold the beads, you join a global chorus. You become part of a spiritual family that spans time and space. And that solidarity can be healing in itself. You may never know what grace is being released through your prayer. You may never see the full impact of your Hail Marys, but in heaven, it will all be revealed. Every whispered rosary, every distracted decade, every tearful mystery, they will all be gathered like pearls and placed before the throne of God, because no prayer is ever wasted. So the next time you pick up your rosary and feel nothing, pray anyway. When your heart is numb and your thoughts are scattered, pray anyway. When it feels like heaven is silent and your faith is tired, pray anyway. There is a quiet revolution that happens in that decision, a shift from performance to perseverance, from feeling to faith, from striving to surrender. And that is where healing begins. Not always in dramatic moments, not always in supernatural signs, but in the humble, holy act of showing up. Every time you reach for your rosary, you are saying yes, not just to prayer, but to trust. Not just to Mary, but to the way of Christ. You are stepping into the mystery of God's love, even when it's hidden. And in doing so, you are becoming more like the one you follow. The rosary may not change your circumstances overnight, but it will change you. And through you, it will begin to change the world. There's something sacred about choosing to keep going when nothing inside you wants to. That's what the rosary teaches at its core. Not flashy miracles, not instant peace, but the quiet strength to return to God one bead at a time. In that rhythm, even in numbness, even in silence, something shifts. You begin to realize that your faith is more than how you feel. It's what you choose when the feelings are gone. One young father, grieving the loss of his wife, said he couldn't pray any spontaneous words for months. His thoughts were jumbled, his heart was broken, but he clung to the rosary. It gave me words when I had none, he said. That's the beauty of it. It meets you where you are, not with pressure to perform, but with permission to simply be present. The prayers become a lifeline, not because you feel their power every time, but because they're pulling your soul toward hope, even when you don't see it. We live in a culture that prizes immediacy. Everything is judged by how fast it works, how exciting it feels, how visible the results are. But God's work is often slow, hidden, deep, and the rosary is one of those deep works. It doesn't appeal to our surface. It invites our soul to settle, to dwell, to wait. And in that stillness, healing begins to take root. You might not notice it right away. You might wonder if it's doing anything. But one day you'll look back and see the change, the patience you've gained, the gentleness that's grown, the faith that's deepened. These things aren't flashy, but they are real. They are lasting, and they are holy. The rosary trains your soul for trust. Think of it like spiritual muscle memory. Even when your heart isn't in it, your soul remembers. Your spirit leans toward God. That's the power of repetition, not in the words themselves, but in what they shape in you. Day by day, decade by decade, your soul becomes more responsive to grace. It's not about perfection. It's not about getting every mystery right or praying with full focus every time. It's about consistency. Showing up, letting God find you in your weakness, letting Mary walk with you in your mess. The rosary isn't a performance, it's a presence. And that presence, over time, becomes transformative. Many people give up on prayer when they don't feel anything. They assume they're doing it wrong. They assume God has stepped away. But silence is not absence, it's invitation. The rosary teaches you how to sit in that silence with faith instead of fear. It teaches you that God is still near, even when you can't hear. Some of the greatest saints described long seasons of dryness and darkness. St. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul. St. Therese of Lisieux felt like an atheist at times, yet they prayed. They held the rosary. They stayed close to God even when everything inside them felt far away, and in doing so they became holy. That's the invitation of the rosary. Not to escape your humanity, but to bring it fully into the presence of God. To hold your joys and sorrows, your confusion and your hope, and offer them through Mary to Jesus. Every Hail Mary becomes a thread in the tapestry of grace God is weaving through your life. And when you pray the mysteries, you enter into the life of Christ, not as an observer, but as a participant. You walk with him through his birth, his suffering, his glory. You carry your own story alongside his, and slowly, mysteriously, your pain finds meaning in his wounds. Your trials find hope in his triumph. That's why the Rosary is so much more than a devotion. It's a lifeline, a weapon, a compass, a companion. It's there in hospital rooms, in quiet corners of grief, in early morning commutes, and restless midnight hours. It doesn't demand you to be in the perfect mood, it just invites you to come as you are. And Mary, our mother, meets us there. She doesn't judge our distractions, she doesn't scold our doubts. She simply prays with us, holds our hand, and brings us closer to her Son. She knows what it's like to trust God in darkness. She knows what it's like to wait, to suffer, to hope. And through the Rosary, she teaches us to do the same. So if you're tired, pray anyway. If you're numb, pray anyway. If you're angry, lost, or empty, pray anyway. You are not alone. You are not wasting time. Every whispered prayer is heard. Every distracted decade is received. And grace is flowing even now. You may not feel it, but one day, you'll see it. One day the healing will become visible, the peace will settle in, the faith will feel like second nature. Until then, let the Rosary carry you. Let it teach you. Let it shape you into someone who loves God, not for the feelings, but for who he is. And in doing so, you will discover what so many saints have learned, that perseverance in prayer is the seed of miracles. Quiet ones, hidden ones, but real ones. The kind that change lives, the kind that change hearts, the kind that change eternity. Even when the Rosary feels like a routine, a duty, or even a burden, it is still doing something powerful beneath the surface. The human soul is shaped not only by what we understand or feel, but also by what we faithfully repeat in trust. That's why so many have testified to its transforming power, not in a flash of emotion, but through years of quiet persistence. The Rosary works like water on stone. Slowly, gently, consistently, it reshapes your heart. Consider a woman battling anxiety for years. She said, "I didn't feel anything for months, but I kept praying the Rosary every night. One day I realized I wasn't panicking the way I used to. I was breathing easier. I had more peace." She didn't notice the change in the moment, but the grace had been at work all along. That's how the Rosary moves, silently, steadily, deeply. This is why the Church has upheld it for centuries, not as an outdated tradition, but as a living source of strength. When we pray it, we join with millions of others through time, echoing the same sacred words, walking the same mysteries of Christ's life, united in a powerful rhythm of hope. Even when we feel alone, we're never praying alone. The communion of saints is real, and they walk with us through every Hail Mary. So many people today search for healing in quick fixes, spiritual highs, or emotional experiences. But the Rosary invites us into something more enduring. It doesn't promise to erase our pain, it teaches us how to carry it with grace. It doesn't eliminate life's storms, it gives us an anchor through them. Every mystery reveals that joy and sorrow, light and glory, they all belong in the journey of faith. And the Rosary makes you stronger than you think. Each time you return to it, especially when you don't feel like it, you're declaring that your faith is not just about comfort, it's about commitment. That kind of resolve builds spiritual muscle. That kind of prayer forms saints. Not flashy, loud, or dramatic, but holy. In fact, many people only understand the Rosary's power in hindsight. They look back over their hardest seasons and see how that simple act of holding the beads, repeating the prayers, staying faithful, was what kept them grounded. It gave them language when their hearts were too tired. It gave them peace when their minds were racing. It gave them a way to be close to God when he felt far. And that's the mystery. He was never far. Through every whispered prayer, he was listening. Through every dry moment, grace was flowing. Through every tear-filled repetition, healing was taking root. The Rosary is less about how you feel and more about what God is doing in you through it. He uses every word, every moment, every breath you give him, even the smallest, weakest ones. If you're in a place where prayer feels empty, let the Rosary become your voice. You don't have to invent the words, you don't have to feel holy. Just show up. Hold the beads. Whisper the prayers. Let Mary walk with you as she walked with Jesus. She knows how to stay close in suffering. She knows how to wait with love. She will not leave you. And over time, your heart will soften. Your eyes will begin to see. Your soul will begin to trust. You'll notice that you're more patient, more forgiving, more peaceful, even if nothing around you has changed. That's the quiet miracle of prayer. It changes you. The Rosary is not a superstition. It's not a magic formula. It's a school of love. Every mystery is a lesson in trust. Every decade is a step on the path of surrender. And in the end, it's not just about what you ask for, but about who you become. Someone more rooted in God. Someone more open to grace. Someone more like Christ. So don't worry if you're distracted. Don't stop if you don't feel anything. Don't give up because it seems boring. The Rosary isn't about feeling, it's about formation. You're being shaped in ways you can't yet see. And those who keep going, especially when it's hard, often receive the greatest blessings. That's the paradox of real prayer. When we come with emptiness, God fills us. When we come with weakness, He strengthens us. When we come with silence, He speaks. Not always in the ways we expect, but always in the ways we need. And one day you will be the testimony someone else needs. You'll be the person who says, I kept praying even when I couldn't feel it, and it changed everything. You'll be the encouragement for someone else who's about to give up. Your quiet faithfulness will become someone else's reason to keep going. That's how God works, through ordinary people doing ordinary things with extraordinary trust. Through a mother praying the Rosary in a hospital waiting room. Through a college student clinging to it during finals. Through a widower who whispers the words alone each night. Each one, unseen by the world, but radiant in heaven. So don't stop. Keep going. Keep praying. Even when it's dry. Even when it's quiet. Even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because something is happening in you, through you, for you. Grace is real. Healing is coming. And God is closer than you think. If this message speaks to your heart, share it with someone who might need it too. And don't forget to subscribe and follow Think Fresh Daily for more stories that strengthen your faith and bring hope into your everyday life. Let's walk this journey together, one prayer, one step, one day at a time.